Hello, and welcome to Very Kimberly, the healed side of codependency. For some of us, a very large piece of the puzzle in understanding our codependent patterns and ultimately understanding ourselves is understanding our daddy issues. Fathers play a very vital role in the emotional, psychological, social, and most importantly, spiritual development of their children. But in a fallen world, becoming more and more intentionally separated from God in these end times, that role within God's design for family has become something that can be quite the opposite of what God had in mind. When I looked up daddy issues on Google, it said that daddy issues is a colloquial term to describe psychological or behavior patterns that develop due to a strained or absent relationship with one's father during childhood. It often implies unresolved emotional conflicts or insecurities in various aspects of a person's life, including relationships, self esteem, and behavior. Sounds a lot like what we struggle with in codependency, doesn't it? See, a father's character and love help us develop that sense of identity as we grow. And we also tend to gauge our own self worth based on that character and love as well. So, whether you had an earthly father that was narcissistic, passive towards a narcissistic mother, struggled with alcoholism or addiction, abandoned you, or who was simply codependent himself. This leaves a significant void. And when that void remains unfilled, we find ways to fill that void in our hearts and lives ourselves with other people. Interestingly, for codependence, we sometimes seek and are drawn to people with similar traits, especially women. We do this because somewhere deep down we falsely believe that since we could not win or earn the love and care that we needed from our earthly fathers, maybe we can change or manipulate other people into filling that void for us. If our earthly fathers refused or could not, by way of their own weaknesses, be who we needed them to be when we were a child, and sometimes beyond, then our controlling flesh nature wants to find that someone who will. And instead of acknowledging that our earthly fathers were flawed human beings who either could not or would not fulfill that father role to us sufficiently, we sometimes blame ourselves. We ask ourselves questions like, what was so wrong with me that my father didn't love me, guide me, or be there for me in the ways that I needed him to? And so we perform our way in our relationships, trying to please everyone and be everything the other person wants. This is our way of attempting to resolve those past, deep, and hidden conflicts with our earthly fathers through our relationships with other people. Even though we know that the original conflict will most likely never be resolved like we would want it to in this lifetime. One of the ways that the Lord got me through this, and still does, is by fully acknowledging that void exists and why it exists. Now, I'll be honest, this was a little tricky for me because I didn't want to fall into the enemy's trap of resentment and bitterness again. But at the same time, I still had to practice that self awareness in knowing what my needs were as a child that were never fulfilled. Once I knew and understood exactly what my unmet needs were, then I began to understand my own patterns in trying to fill those voids within my relationships. So, to do this, I had to change the script of my question to myself from what was so wrong with me, dot, 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 to what was it that I needed from my earthly father that he did not provide because he either could not or refused to give. This not only placed my mindset in reality that those voids simply existing were not my fault, but it also helped me become aware of what my needs still are. Next, I had to come to a place of empathy and forgiveness, but at the same time, not excusing or dismissing bad behavior or lack of right behavior. We can have compassion and understanding towards a person's flaws, but still not agree with it. And we can place what happened or didn't happen in our past in God's hands, trusting a plan has already been made for it all. And finally, the Lord helped me accept who my earthly father was as a person, not who I felt that I needed him to be. Now, this did not mean removing healthy boundaries by allowing certain behaviors to be present in my life, or by giving my earthly father close access to my emotional or mental well being. But it did mean that I had to shift my expectations a bit and navigate our relationship accordingly. Not in bitterness or resentment, but with the understanding that he was in God's hands and therefore his shortcomings were between him and the Lord, just like mine were between me and the Lord. But you know what? I honestly do not think that I would have ever been able to process any of that if I had not first come to the realization that God the Father, aka Abba Father, was always willing and able to be everything that my earthly father either could not or would not be. One of the reasons why it is so important for us to practice that self-awareness in acknowledging what our needs are is because God the Father wants to meet those needs. If you needed your earthly father to be more kind and compassionate, God the Father is always kind and compassionate. If you needed your earthly father's guidance and direction, God the Father, who knows all things, is always willing to give wisdom to those who seek it. If you needed your earthly father to be stable and consistent, God the Father never changes, nor does his truth. If you needed your earthly father to provide for you, God the Father always does. And if you needed your earthly father to just be there with you, God the Father always is through the Holy Spirit. When you begin to experience God the Father's love for you, realizing that every single day he is filling those empty voids in your heart, and when you can finally see yourself as his child, then you will also see who you really are and your true identity. It won't matter so much anymore what your earthly father didn't do in the past or what he doesn't do now. Because Abba Father does it all. I hope that this video was a blessing to you. And until next time, this is Very Kimberly encouraging you to keep striving to be on the healed side of codependency.